Hello, and welcome to another roundup of A Dozen Dukes to Add to Your TBR. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot. You're watching Random Olive Reads. The Duke Who Loved Me by Jane Ashford is book one of the Duke's Estates series. James recently inherits a dukedom and a clutter-filled townhouse of a hoarder. He gets the bright idea to propose marriage to his longtime friend Cecilia so that she can come and organize and manage all of his problems. Insulted by his unemotional offer, she rejects him. These two have known each other for many years because Cecilia has acted as a go between with James and her father, the person who was in charge of his trust. While Cecilia has always had a crush on the somewhat shallow and pompous James, he never seemed to treat her as a lady worth courting. After the rejection of his initial proposal, James attempts to spend more time with Cecilia and convince her to accept him. However, Cecilia is suddenly surrounded by a gaggle of younger debutantes who wanted social advice and now are a loyal friend group. So it's hard for James to get Cecilia alone. Add in another potential suitor in the form of a prince, and James is thwarted almost everywhere he goes. We do finally see James start to learn some self awareness and realize that he has real feelings for Cecilia, but it takes an incident of public humiliation in order for him to turn things around. A Duke's Guide to Romance by Sophie Barnes is book one of the Gentleman Author series. Impoverished Duke Anthony is worrying about how to secure funds for his sister's future debut and is considering marriage to a wealthy daughter of a viscount. He stumbles upon a bookshop and meets the charming young lady Ada, who works there and lives there with her uncle. At first, he hides the fact that he's a duke and enjoys a friendship with Ada, and she makes an observation that romance novels, like those from Jane Austen, sell quite well. And Anthony takes the idea back to his two friends and proposed that they should write a romance novel together to sell for money. Anthony and Ada continue their friendship, and he does ultimately tell her who he is. It is a relatively sweet development of their relationship, despite their differences in social station. There's a little bit of meddling and scheming from the lady that Anthony is purportedly courting, but that eventually gets resolved with some open communication. Duke Seeks Bride by Christy Carlisle is book three of the Love on Holiday series. Our guy Alex is a new duke with a marriage stipulation in his father's will, stating that he needs to get married in 6 months to keep the castle in Ireland. His annoyingly meddlesome aunt has tried to matchmake him with a wealthy widowed countess and invited the countess to the castle for some supposed equestrian charity event. The countess sends her secretary instead, mostly to avoid the matchmaking. Evie is the ultra organized secretary who's been working with the Countess for the past 3 years, but also secretly writes romance novels in her spare time. When she shows up at the castle, she is shocked to find that they were expecting the Countess, even though a letter should have explained the switch. Alex and Evie have actually met briefly once before in the garden of a ball, but Evie is very much aware of her social status and that a romance between her and the Duke is impossible. It's not actually impossible since this is a romance book after all, but it takes some time for each person to realize what they really do want and that they need each other. This book is a relatively low angst, straightforward romance with a quick resolution to the external plot. The Duke and the Dressmaker by Eva Devon is book two of the Once Upon a Wallflower series. Newly inherited Duke James attempts to rescue a young woman at a tavern and finds out that she is the sister of his missing ward. Lily and Violet are granddaughters of the old Duke, but not part of society due to their mother's scandalous marriage to a French painter. Now orphaned and impoverished, Lily works as a dressmaker's seamstress while caring for her young sister. James insists that they both move into the ducal townhouse, and after a bit of disagreement, they do. However, James and Lily are starting to stir up a scandal with all the time that they spend together unchaperoned, as much as they try to keep things proper. They do ultimately get married, since Lily is so good at managing James's household, but conflict looms ahead as James plans to leave England without having mentioned his plans to Lily. Now, I liked how well Lily and James worked together and started to soften towards each other, even though both have been disappointed by their own parents in the past. The Duke Goes Down by Sophie Jordan is book one of the Duke Hunt series. This one actually We start with a duke who ends up not being the duke because he was technically born before his parents got married. So Perry is now a mere mister and looking for a wealthy heiress to marry. The vicar's daughter Imogen wants to deter Perry from his scheme and protect the women of the village, so she spreads rumors about Perry to dissuade the young ladies. When he realizes that she's the one spreading rumors, he confronts her and kisses her and tries to get her to stop. Now, these two have had a long childhood history of animosity, so the latent attraction springing up in the present is super entertaining to read. We also get a bit of backstory of why Imogen is so cautious of trusting Perry and his motives. The Duke's Deceitful Governess by Caroline Lee is book one of the Surprise Duke series. Rourke has custody of his brother's illegitimate twin children who are a crazy handful and have been kicked out of a bunch of schools and scared off lots of governesses. He's giving them one last chance to behave for their latest governess, threatening to send them to school separately if they don't behave. Sophia is the new governess, but she actually doesn't have any experience with children and forged her recommendation letters so that she can come to Rourke's estate to look for evidence that he is either complicit or innocent in her old boss's crimes. Sophia is actually a surprisingly good governess, though, connecting with the children and helping Rourke to connect with them too. Rourke and Sophia are instantly attracted to each other and find ease and companionship with each other. This book was humorous and steamy, but also had a bit of danger involved. Definitely recommended if you want to see a stern, serious, cold Duke learn to love his niece and nephew along with their governess. When the Duke Loved Me by Lydia Lloyd is book one of the Rake Chronicle series. If you enjoy historical romances that have a bit of mystery or quest, this one is for you. We start with a garden tryst that ends badly when a duke's heir and a country miss find out that the person that they're trysting with is a longtime family enemy due to scandal. We jump 7 years later to find that John, the new duke, is stuck with an arduous component of his father's will. And in order to prevent scandal from being heaped onto his sister's reputation, he needs to find his father's former lover and give her an annuity. John needs the help of the woman's niece, Catherine, who has also borne the brunt of the old family scandal and now lives in poverty with the family of a baronet. Over the course of the book, we learn that the old Duke's indiscretion was revealed loudly and caused a great deal of upheaval for both families involved. Catherine agrees to help John locate her aunt in exchange for money, but she has little hope of finding the woman who ran off and was never seen again. While John and Catherine try to stay serious and professional with each other, it's clear that they're still attracted to each other and wish that their family circumstances weren't so complicated. I really like learning more about the past scandal in bits and pieces as the history unfolded, as these two try to find her aunt. Everything actually tied together really well. The Good, the Bad, and the Duke by Jana McGregor is book four of the Caversham Heiresses series. Lady Daphne accidentally gets left in London alone at Christmas time in a mix-up of whether she's traveling with her brother or her mother. She decides to use this time to focus on her goals of setting up a home for unwed mothers and to establish her own residence. While mulling over her options in the park, her reticule and personal journal are stolen by a young boy and she gives chase. Eventually tracking the boy to a gambling hell, she bumps into Paul, her brother's former friend and now nemesis, who tries to rescue Daphne and protect her reputation. Over the next few days, Daphne and Paul team up to try to recover her journal while also rekindling their long ago childhood friendship. Daphne is caring and compassionate towards Paul, who has acted the villain in previous books in the series. Turns out he was treated horribly by his father, even after his father's death, with cutting notes and reminders of his wastrel ways. There's a tiny disagreement about the purchase of a property that Daphne wants to use as her charity house and Paul wants to use as a hospital, but that scuffle is pretty minor compared to the risk of scandal Daphne is under if her journal is discovered. And of course, when Daphne's family comes back, they're loudly disapproving of Paul. No Dukes Allowed by Jess Michaels is book one of the Kent's Row Duchesses series. Widowed Duchess Valeria has just moved to a street of townhouses full of widowed duchesses. She's keeping secrets regarding the death of her cruel and terrible husband and is hesitant to make new friends. However, her late husband's friend Callum is intent on checking on her well being, even though she wants to push him away. Callum is the ultimate nice guy and has admired her for many years, but denied his feelings due to his friendship. Now that his friend has died, he feels guilty for calling on Valeria, but can't seem to help himself. And Valeria has always been attracted to Callum as well, not knowing why this seemingly upstanding gentleman was friends with her husband. Callum basically didn't know that his friend was completely awful, so he feels even worse when he discovers that Valeria did not have a happy marriage. At some point, these two start an affair, but there's still a heavy secret between them and Valeria's overall skittishness to overcome. Painting the Duke by Georgina North is a standalone novel. Vivian is an orphaned lady who lives with her aunt and uncle and is known for refusing multiple marriage offers. She actually has a secret life as an oil painter, and many of her anonymous works are showcased at royal exhibitions. This season, a handsome Duke Brick is back in town after being banished for many years. He's not exactly looking for a wife, but he's intrigued by Vivian and is somehow egged into betting that he is able to secure her hand in marriage. He definitely has his work cut out for him since she is very outspoken with her desire not to marry. However, he's refreshed by her opinions on art and equality and enjoys spending time with her. She also enjoys his company but refuses to give up her art and worries that he will be scandalized by her secret. This book is definitely a slow burn romance, with Vivian being the one to learn to let down her walls and share her secret with the world. We also have Brick learning to let go of societal expectations and support Vivian in every way possible. And when she catches him in a lie, he delivers on very meaningful displays of affection. The Duke Gets Desperate by Diana Quincy is book one of the Sirens in Silk series. Anthony thinks he will finally get possession back of the family castle after his stepmother tragically passes away, but it turns out she left the castle to her cousin, who has just arrived to visit from America. Now, Raya doesn't want or need a castle and is willing to sell it to Anthony at fair market value, but he also doesn't have any money. These two argue their way to a truce while also ogling each other and trying to resist their simmering attraction. We add in some mystery here of Anthony's missing historical artifacts and the suspicious nature of his stepmother's death, and we have plenty of plot to keep your attention going. All Duke and Bothered by Mariah Stone is book one of the Dukes and Secrets series. New Duke Preston wants revenge on his brother's killer, so he arranges himself in a position to marry Penelope, the young lady that he believes led on his brother and whose father hired ruffians to beat him. She doesn't know about her father's misdeeds and is horrified at having to marry Preston, who openly disdains Penelope. Preston believed that Penelope was a shallow flirt who was interested in his brother's money, but really she just thought they were friends and liked to talk about art together. Penelope was not interested in marriage at all and just wanted to work on her painting. As Preston starts to see that he was mistaken about Penelope's true personality, he feels guilty for misjudging the situation with his brother and also guilty for marrying her. He's still preoccupied with revenge, though, against Penelope's father, and she's disappointed that he's clearly choosing revenge over the possibility of love and happiness. It's all pretty much a muddle until Preston can share his secrets with Penelope. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found a book or two that you wanted to add to your TBR. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.